Noise gates can be used in two ways within Logic. They can be used in the sort of traditional way, the thing that they were designed, built for in the first place, and they can be used more creatively. In this example, we're going to look at how noise gates can be used in a kind of traditional way, which is that effectively what you have a chance to do is to have a processor sitting over your mix, which only opens when the volume threshold is breached. In other words, signals have to get loud enough, and if they don't, the gate just doesn't open. So what we're going to do firstly is to put the noise gate on the output track here for this project. Noise gate's just down here at the bottom. And what we're going to do is to see the controls that we have available. So firstly, we have the all-important threshold control. Effectively, if I turn this up, the signal simply cannot reach this volume, which means that the gate is never going to open, which means that when I press play, we're not actually going to hear any audio at all. We can see all of these tracks are playing. It's just that the volume isn't becoming loud enough to open the gate. And I can see that it's closed here because I've got two little buttons showing me, well, not buttons, but little LEDs, if you like, showing me whether or not the gate is opened or closed. So what happens when I start dropping the threshold? Well, we'll begin to hear little bits of the audio coming through as they become loud enough to open the gate. So what we're going to hear here now is only the loudest transients are actually opening the gate. So we get this kind of super gated drum mix. Obviously, the more I drop the threshold, more of these moments are going to be loud enough to get through the threshold. And eventually I can drop the threshold so far that all of the drum mix makes its way through, and effectively there's no point me having a gate because the signal isn't being gated anymore. So let's come back to something which is gating the signal, and we'll see what the other controls allow me to do. Firstly, I can decide how much or how significantly the volume is going to drop on gated signals. Now you'd think you'd want it to drop completely, 100 decibels, but actually sometimes gating a signal is quite nice if you only take a little bit of level out of the signal. Let's have a listen to that. Rather than reducing the level completely, this time I'm just going to take some of the volume out by setting a much less significant volume reduction. So now we can hear the whole drum mix. It's just that only the bits above the threshold are at their normal volume. Everything else is being attenuated by 6 dB. What I've then got is a chance to control how quickly the dynamics respond, both at the beginning of detection, of opening the noise gate, and how long they stick around for as the gate closes. So at the moment I can hear the attack time is making the gate open very quickly, which is appropriate for drum material, but at the moment it's also closing pretty quickly. If I increase the release time, it means that the gate is going to stay open for longer. Now those are actually the main controls within the gate. Yes, I've got an opportunity here to set a filter range around the material and how it's being gated. So there are definitely additional controls here. And again, like many of the dynamics processors, we've got a look ahead option as well, so that effectively we can produce a slightly smoother response by asking Logic to kind of look at what's coming. But broadly speaking, the noise gate here in a traditional sense, in terms of simply opening and closing depending on the dynamic threshold of the material that you're passing through it, can be organized and managed with those dials. And we'll look at the extended options on the advanced course. Another way of working with noise gates is to use a sidechain input signal to gate another sound. This is a really popular technique in all forms of pop and dance music in particular, and we're going to see how that works right here. What I've got within this mix is a few sounds. I'm interested only in the kind of pad sound, which is kind of a melody and a pad, and the drum beat, which is on track 1. What I want to do is to take the rhythm of that beat loop and I want to kind of inflict it on this pad lead sound so that effectively the two things feel like they're more in step. And I can do that using a noise gate. And here's how that works. What I'm going to do is to put a noise gate on the pad sound. I'm going to come down to the Dynamics folder and find Logic's noise gate. Now, what I can do, as we've already seen, is I can simply set the threshold, reduction, attack, hold and release times in order to control how the gate opens and closes on this sound. But that isn't actually what I want to do here. What I want to do instead is to take the drum loop, this beats track, and I want it to be the determining factor for whether or not the noise gate opens and closes. In other words, as the beat forces the gate open, it will open, and as the beat drops away in volume, it will close. It's just that the sound it will be affecting is the pad lead sound. So what I'm going to do is to come to the sidechain input option up here. I'm going to come to the audio tracks. I'm going to come and find beats. I know it's an audio track because I can see the waveform for it, and obviously I can see the name of the track here. And what that's now going to do is to specify that the drums are going to be the thing that are going to open and close this noise gate. Now, I still need to get my threshold and my sort of enveloping stages right. But if we just do this by sort of turning the threshold up, we'll see the audio effect of what it means for the beat loop to be opening and closing this noise gate. And if we compare that with no gating, so we're getting that kind of skip that's coming from the kick drum and the snare. They're the only parts of the beat that are opening it. Now, again, if I want to open this up a bit, there are a couple of ways I can do that. Firstly, I could drop the threshold, so more of the beat loop is coming through, and therefore the gate will be open a bit more than it is right now. And now we're getting some of the hi-hat behavior beginning to open it up a little bit as well. The other thing I could do would, of course, be to change the enveloping stages of the gate, so that effectively if I increase the release time, it will take longer for the gate to recover, and therefore we'll get a little bit more of that kind of pad sound before the gate closes. Okay, and here we can hear the difference between hold and release. So hold literally holds the gate open for a particular period of time specified here, whereas release controls how long it takes for the sound to drop away once the noise, the input signal has dropped back below the threshold point. So what we've got a chance to do here is to basically take the groove of one part of a mix and kind of inflict it on another sound so that we get a kind of tighter integration of those two particular elements within a mix.